Thanks for tuning in to the Alt Funds Network. My name is Mike Schroeder. Today I'm here with my co-host Skyler Steinke, and we're joined by Patrick Dunlop. Patrick is the CEO of Jackal Labs and the co-founder of Jackal Protocol. Patrick, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a great time to hop on and chat away.
Excited. We got a lot of fun topics. We're going to be talking a lot about cybersecurity, some things with AI, and really what you guys are working on at Jackal Protocol. So maybe let's start from the beginning. Kind of talk to us. What's your crypto story? How'd you get into the industry, and kind of walk us through to where you're at today at Jackal.
Yeah, it's we had a pretty non-standard introduction into the space. So before I was doing this, I was working in digital forensics and investigations for law firms and corporations and all that good stuff. 2021 rolls around, and a lot of like theft and fraud on chain, whether it's flash loan attacks, whether it's CEO of XYZ company moves money into Bitcoin and saying he's getting extorted and all that kind of craziness. So at that time in Canada, at least, I don't know what the situation was in the States, but in Canada, we had this issue where the police wouldn't really take the cases at all. So it became a civil issue. And when it's a civil issue, it becomes how much justice can you afford? And if that's the case, then they would have to go find people that could, number one, track, trace, and do forensics and argue in court that what happened. So that was my introduction. Was the lawyers would call us and be like, "Hey, do you guys know anything about this crypto stuff?" And we'd be like, "Kinda, a little bit." And it turned into us kind of running a full-on like trace and recovery shop for digital assets, and that was kind of my introduction.
So there are people that have had their like crypto stolen, maybe.
There was like fraud at the board level where they're saying that they're being extorted, have to use company funds to buy cryptocurrency, flash loan attacks, all kinds of craziness that we worked on. But that was my introduction, and we kind of, for us to kind of be able to do what we needed to do, we had to have a really deep understanding of the technology. We hated it at first. We thought it was silly, but the more we got into it, we were just thinking about digital track and trace of evidence and what does that mean? And we were looking at building an e-discovery tool using blockchain as who had access to what evidence at what time before the courts, because in the cloud, there's not really clean forensic environment to say. So we wanted to make sure that we could take blockchain principles of, it's a ledger of who has what stuff at what time. Some people call it a magic spreadsheet that's never wrong. But we can use those security principles for that. We built that, and then we actually needed the storage layer that would integrate with the security principles and the security posture and privacy posture we needed for the product. Then people found the infrastructure more interesting than a e-discovery tool for some weird reason. So then we built the actual infrastructure layer.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess maybe talk to us too, because this has come up for people who don't kind of know the ins and outs of this. What's the core problem in traditional recovery that on-chain verification solves for? Everything legacy systems, right?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So just to kind of lean into that, so we built the infrastructure, and now we're trying to figure out like what is the killer use case for said infrastructure. So we started focusing on recovery, backup and recovery for organizations' data primarily. So when you look at kind of what is the core difference between blockchains and a central server, right? There are certain things that blockchain can give us when we go to build a cybersecurity product like that. Number one is in traditional cybersecurity, it's a perimeter defense model, right? You have like this pot of gold and you put a wall around it, right? The wall is very, very secure. There's intrusion detection on the wall. There's firewalls. There's blah 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 blah. But they harden the wall around the thing. If you get past the wall, if there's a window open or someone inside makes a mistake, doesn't lock the door, it's open season and it's game over. Once you get past the wall, you're in. With blockchains, they're very special and they have some security guarantees, and that's why we like to use it for things like money or things like Bitcoin or stable coins or transfer globally, all that good stuff. But what we think is criminally underexplored is using something with these security guarantees that are hardened to the core, where there's no back doors, there's no centralized thing to attack. When you use those guarantees and you apply them to other things like recovery or disaster recovery products, we get these unique guarantees that are just unseen compared to traditional markets. For example, when you use you make a backup for your business, and if you want to know that the backup works, you have to download the backup and test it every single time. You can see some crazy stats if you just hop on Google where like 50% of the backups are incomplete and then 60% fail over the wire. If that's the case, we have this industry that hasn't really innovated ever. And we can take this technology where we can actually verify every 6 hours that every single file on the network is verified, secure, and it's encrypted, like 1 kilobyte encrypted chunk, send it to the blockchain, the validators say, yeah, the data's there. So it's not a full restore to test, but it's way better than we got right now. So that's just one example of using blockchain technology. But the other things that are beautiful is like the service level agreements are built into the chain. That's also really special. Let's say that you want 3 copies of your data in 3 different data centers. If one of those data centers go down, fire, power outage, whatever it might be, and it can't submit the proofs that the files are there and secure, that puts us in a situation where the blockchain actually says, okay, that file, we're going to assume it's dead. We're going to issue a new file to the protocol. Another storage provider picks it up and copies for redundancy. So it's like whack-a-mole as well. So you can do some very special things. Multi-signature wallets around a root folder where you can get the board to come to consensus to reload. The only way a hacker can get in is to like physically harm the board. There's all kinds of great things that we can do by piggybacking on this technology that is primarily only used for finance applications. And we think that is not fair.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So there's a lot to unpack here. So
yeah.
Maybe let's start with like, for listeners maybe that are new to Web3 in decentralized storage, like, can you kind of talk about how it kind of differs from, traditional storage, like, Google Drive, Dropbox, other players in space?
Yeah, decentralized storage is like a really wide net, right? And it's kind of hard to like say like, okay, like Filecoin does this one thing really good, and Arrowweave does this one thing really good, and we do like we focus on self-custody and privacy and security and that stuff, and we do very different things. But for sake of just like comparison with Dropbox or something like that, from our difference between that is we actually can't access our users' data. So that's a big one.
Okay, so
right?
Dropbox could technically access all the folders, files that I have there, yeah?
Yeah. So there's like a lot of pre-processing that goes at the end of the day. You're storing it on their machine, so they inherently have access to it. There's a lot of end-to-end encryption stuff, but if they give you a thumbnail of like a preview of what your file looks like, they have access to the file.
Okay.
The way that we have to do that is pretty crazy. Like it's just the art of providing a thumbnail is pretty insane. And the way that we had to do it is like you'd have to like scale down like a screenshot of it, encrypt it, and then put that in the chain itself and then present. We don't have to get into that. But the difference between essentially decentralized options and like a Dropbox is primarily just the security and privacy posture that it offers in our case. If you look at Filecoin and their difference, Filecoin's like a marketplace for storage. So like the marketplace dynamics drives the price down, and it's good for like cold storage archiving, and it can take like 24 hours to get your files back. So that's great for a lot of use cases. And their benefit is they use underutilized storage capacity around the world. Awesome. Arrowweave, they're kind of like forever storage. So you pay once, you store forever, but you're front loading the cost, right? So like I'm going to pay like $60 and I'm going to have this file up there for 200 years. That's the model that they have right now. That's cool for like things that shouldn't go away forever.
Right. Or maybe
like
a really important document.
Stuff like that. And you wanted both these things, you want them to be like public, anyone can access.
Okay.
Unless you want to like manage your own encryption keys locally, but no one's really going to do that. So that's kind of like the difference between like everyone kind of does a different thing using this technology for a different use case. At the end of the day, like all three of us, the difference is our SLAs aren't just like handshakes and trust. It's actually like the SLAs are built into the blockchains directly with immutable code. That is the fundamental difference between what we do and what you're kind of used to in traditional markets, and then we all do something completely different from each other.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah. Kind of along that vein, maybe just talking about the on-chain storage layers, right? You guys are obviously
Yeah.
building. What's the future look like? You guys are building also like a depend on-chain storage layer, like Vault, Pen, Outpost. What's the vision for Jackal Labs as a decentralized infrastructure stack going?
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of steps here, right? It's you can kind of look at it like, what's the difference between building on blockchains right now and building like
Yeah.
Snapchat? Is like we actually have to build the infrastructure and then build the apps and then try to figure out what the killer app
Right.
is and go to market, right? So it's just like, if you like, the capital efficiency is not really there in blockchain just for those things, but the capital efficiency if the thing works is really, really good. So it's kind of like this double-edged sword where you actually have to build the lowest level of the stack. And then we built things along the way as we were building that over the last 4 years. So we built Vault. It's like a Dropbox, so we can test it. Essentially, we have 1,000 users that are like security and privacy advocates. They love it for that use case, and that's awesome. They want self-custody, cloud, scalability of the cloud, security, privacy posture, like self-hosting your files in your desk. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Pin was another use case where, as we were building, people came along and said like, hey, we want to use it for this use case. So Pin was like, I want public files that are hosted and anyone can access them, and it's cheaper and there's no ingress and egress fees. And we're like, okay, here we go. We built that. And as we built these products, we started to build up the libraries and the tooling around the actual DPIN storage and blockchain network. And then you kind of, it's kind of like unlocking achievements in a video games. Like, oh, like now we have S3 compatibility. Oh, now we have our Jackal JS libraries are really, really strong. Oh, the storage providers had like some bug in the code, and then we had to ship an upgrade to that. So as we continue to build these different products, we get to unlock essentially new functionality of the protocol, and it gets to us the ability to solve bigger problems, whether it's us or other people building on our stack. So that's kind of like the fundamental difference between building in Web 2 and Web 3. It's one has the complexity of like a social app, and the other is kind of like a complexity of like a biotech company. It's a lot more frustrating.
Imagine,
sure. Yeah, to put lightly. Yeah, but yeah, no, it still is awesome though.
Yeah,
it is. It's very, very special that we have the luxury and the honor to kind of build these things and experiment in these design spaces. It's pretty special stuff.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to like actually storing data on a blockchain, so obviously, like you mentioned, like financial transactions make a lot of sense. Like, I send Skyler whatever portion of Bitcoin.
Sure.
It's on the block. It's immutable. Now, kind of in the same way, if you take like a document, maybe I have a PDF when it comes to like recovery, things like this. I store this document or file on the cloud or on chain. Talk to us about that kind of aspect. Like, are people could people go on chain and see this document, or kind of how do you think about this perspective?
Yeah, this is like an architecture decision, right? So us, Arweave, and Filecoin, we all built it in different architectures, right? So the issue with blockchains themselves is like you can fit like about a couple kilobytes before the gas gets too expensive, and then the validators or the miners explode. Right? Like, you remember when ordinals was a thing where like people were like actually putting like pictures in the blocks, and then all the blockchains exploded like a few years ago? I think that was like last summer, maybe?
Last year, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happens if you actually try to put the files in the block.
Okay.
It doesn't work really well. And the scalability issues that we've seen, like we have the luxury of like looking at some of these guys and just trying to figure out like, okay, like what can we do differently? So Filecoin and Arweave, the storage providers and the miners are the same machine, but the data is not actually going in the block. And this is like kind of a misconception that we get a lot. Like, data availability is actually going in the block, but like storage of like a terabyte video file is not going to go in the block, right?
Okay.
So what's actually going on chain and what is going on this storage network? These are kind of two different things. So the way that we did is we split it in two. So the validators, they're like the police. The blockchain is the police of the network. So who has access to what files? are the files there? What storage providers have those files? And the encryption and decryption, the permission system of who has access to what stuff at what time. That's all in the chain, and that is verified by the chain. It's secured by the chain, and that's kind of the SLAs that police the storage network. The storage providers, what they do is they store the data, and then their job is to submit attestations to the chain of the data that they have, or proofs to the chain. Right now it's proofs. So as we scale, it have to be attestations, because the more files, the more throughput. We don't have to get into it.
Yeah.
But that's what their job is. So when you talk about like what's actually on chain, the file trees encrypted. The actual files that are on the storage providers encrypted. The only way in and out of those files is if you have your own private key. The same thing for your Bitcoin or your stable coins or whatever it might be. So your private key is your wallet or basket of things that you own in blockchain land. And then we just make files available for that. It's kind of the same thing with NFTs, right? The NFT, who has access to what NFT is actually on chain, but the actual file is not on chain. There's been situations where NFTs just disappear. And it's like, why does that happen? It's like, I thought I owned this, but no, it definitely is a thing. So the blockchain is a state machine. It is the police of the network, and it as much things that we can jam on chain, the more the merrier. For example, like anything that we can do to reduce like our operational expenses, we're going to try to jam in the chain and automate it.
Yeah. Now, when I think about like, I'm using this computer here that I've used for work for the last couple of years. I've got to have a million files on it. I mean, some of these are just garbage. Like, I've taken a screenshot. I take 10 screenshots a day.
Sure.
So obviously, like, this is not a file that I necessarily care to have on chain. How do you think about that aspect? Like, are people just putting contracts on chain, or is this going to be every screenshot on my desktop?
Kind of depends, right? So it's when you build like such a low level of the stack, everyone wants to use it differently, which is like a great thing, and it's also a terrible thing for us, right? So for example, like for when we first started, people wanted to use it as Dropbox, and about 1,000 people today use it as Dropbox. And that's cool, right? Like they want all of their important stuff. I like to think of it as more of a vault rather than like an active cloud environment, just because we encrypt it. It's going to be a little bit slower. The block times are 6 seconds. But if you care about privacy and security that much, everything that they have is going on that. Whether it's documents, family photos, it could be deeds to houses, it could be screenshots, memes, whatever. So some people do use it like that. A lot of the bigger use cases, right? So we're incentivized to get data onto the protocol in size. That's how the protocol makes money. The more data, the more money, the happier the validators make money, the storage providers make money, we make money, everyone's happy. So for those use cases, we're seeing a lot of stuff with video. There's someone that's building a video application. We have guys that have built like mobile storage where like you can just like take your entire camera roll and just like clear it out onto the protocol. It's secure, private, awesome. But what we're more focused on is the cybersecurity products. So backup and recovery of the entire organization data, move that onto the storage network, make sure it's secure in case of emergency break glass and reload so you don't have downtime. So we all kind of see different things. A lot of people want to use it for different things, and I think that's awesome. Luckily, like it's a blockchain. We can't even, we don't really control it ourselves. It's kind of like you create this thing and then it's out there, and the validators vote on every single state change.
That's pretty interesting. I guess to bring that up, talking about kind of, you guys have a geo-distributed network with blockchain-based integrity proofs. It's kind of what you guys have. High level,
essentially.
Maybe walk us through what a restore looks like after a ransomware incident, step by step. Like something happens, how does the system work, right?
Yeah. So essentially, what would happen is, like, let's say a ransomware incident ensues. From when we used to, like in digital forensics, when we go and we like do all our stuff, it kind of depends on who's who in the zoo. Like large organizations don't get affected as much as kind of mid-size, like the manufacturing guys get hammered hard. Like the home builders, the construction guys, they're always like the brunt of ransomware and like the $10 trillion global cost of this every year. But essentially, how it would work is all the data, like however you want to set your policies, right? It can be 7 days, you have the 30-day, you can have the 1 year. and you can have snapshots. It can be incremental. So your data is going on to through Respawn, which is an application that then gets pushed to the Jackal protocol as like the failsafe. So essentially what would happen is you show up in the office, everything's encrypted. They can make their decision what they want to do. Either they can factory reset everything, or they can just throw out their devices and get new devices, and then essentially use the Jackal protocol to respawn. So you have all your data on 3 different networks. You're going to be streaming from all those storage providers, which saturates the wire so you can get back quicker. And then that will go back into your systems, and essentially just going through that. You can be custodial of the keys. We could be custodial of the keys. It kind of depends on how comfortable you are, because sometimes they want someone to blame. So they'd rather us be the guys rather than them kind of be self-custodial of the root folder. Yeah. But that's essentially how it operates. It's very simple, but the security guarantees and the verification that the data is there, those are the things that at the end of the day, backups and recovery software or disaster recovery software, it's a peace of mind product. And if you want peace of mind, do you want to run these recovery drills all the time, or do you want to actually have verified proofs that the data is there? Some people don't run recovery drills at all because it's too expensive. So this is way better than nothing. So that's for them. There's other things that we are going to be doing where you can have like a live mount. So you have like an exact copy ready to go that you can just point to. So while we kind of rehydrate, because depending on how much data it is, like there's physics involved. So like it could take, like if it's just 1 terabyte coming back, you can get it back pretty quick. If we're talking petabytes of data, it's going to take days. So we also have live mount services where you can just point, and then you can rehydrate from your failsafe that is.
Okay, so I guess from a system perspective, how does a system check for integrity, and how often does that happen? And what happens if the backup fails, I guess?
Yeah. So essentially, how does it check for integrity? So we have 2 things that are built into the protocol. It's 2 algorithms. Number 1 is the internal detection of loss, and then the other one is the proof of persistence protocol. So the internal detection of loss protocol is essentially if the storage providers every 6 hours, the blockchain is they're not all at the same time. So like when I say every 6 hours, it's like every file going to the chain at once. But every individual file has a different time throughout 24 hours that it has to prove to the chain. It happens twice every 24 hours. So let's say every 12 hours, a storage provider gets called from the protocol, says, hey, storage provider, you need to send me 1 kilobyte encrypted chunk that's randomized every time of this file. Storage provider has to grab that, submit a proof to the chain, validators check. If it's good, and then it sends it back because we have the Merkle, all that stuff in the chain directly. So that's kind of how that operates. The proof of persistence protocol is essentially if they don't submit their proof on time and they miss 1 or they miss 2, right? In that situation, what happens is the validator is going to be like, that file we have to assume is dead because we don't play the trust or maybe game here. So they're going to submit a new storage deal to the network saying that this file with this FID has to be stored. It needs 1 more form of redundancy. All the storage providers we call it like the burn pile. And then they grab a new contract, they copy from redundancy from the other 2 storage providers that have that file, and then it kind of rehydrates back up to 3 at all times. You can choose redundancy. You can be like, I want 1 million times redundancy. We can do that, but we just set it to 3 as a default.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like whack-a-mole.
Thanks. Yeah.
Now, kind of pivoting to like cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I know one of the things in your website mentions how AI has increased cybersecurity attacks. It's made them cheaper, more frequent. Kind of talk to us about kind of what's happening with AI and the cybersecurity side. How is it?
Yeah, that was kind of our mental model where we're just, okay, we have this thing, right? We have this storage network. It's like, what is the biggest impact we can do with our time that we have on this wonderful earth, right? And we said, okay, so right now, cybersecurity is already like a $7 to $10 trillion issue a year, like on like cybercrime specifically. 70% of that total cost is downtime. So if we can make downtime non-existent, make recovery abundant and as cheap as possible, then Yahoo, like we're able to like really tackle a large chunk of that. So that is kind of the thesis we have. And that was one piece. But then we looked at, okay, why is it growing so exponentially? There's two things that are growing. The global cost of cybercrime is growing every year. The second thing that's growing is the unique vulnerabilities, and that's a new thing, where the unique amount of vulnerabilities being reported that are high severity or severe are exponentially increasing year over year. Why is that? Right? So now we have scanning, that's AI. We have the phishing, the just finding 0 days, being able to recursively learn on phishing. The cost of deploying these attacks have just they're going marginally to zero. Like the marginal cost of deploying a cyber attack is going, if we continue on this trend, it's going to zero. So if that's the case, right, where we have a lot of variables on one side, where you have so many different ways that they can attack you, you have the exponential growth of the actual ability for these individual models to attack is getting exponentially better. So you have unknowns for the business. Like we do have one known, and there's like, are you able to bounce back? Mm-hmm. You're going to get hit. It's going to be nasty for a little bit here. Like I hope that the cybersecurity, like the actual perimeter defense mechanisms get better as well with the AI, but it is a cat and mouse game. So what one thing can we make sure by using the security guarantees of blockchain, where it doesn't matter if it's us or an AI or whatever it might be, you can't break these things. We don't have to get into quantum computing like that. that is
that for next time.
Until then, can we guarantee using the security guarantees of blockchain technology that you can recover and your data is there and you have that fail safe?
Right.
That removes a large chunk of the total cost, because it's not the ransom, it's not the fines, it's not the compliance issues afterwards. It's actually the downtime for the business that is the cost.
Yeah, like you said, it's like 70% of the cost, right?
Yeah. So if that is just one thing that we can guarantee, and on the other side, you have like this completely asymmetric, multiple different variables that could affect you. We think that is a really good use of our time and a really good use of this technology.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. It kind of makes me think about, we've had a couple on our show a while back, crypto insurance companies. Do you kind of see Jackal actually offering recovery as a service to insurers or regulators? I mean, it can be interesting. Right? It seems like it's investing on the insurance side.
I think it's a no-brainer. Like there's you look at companies in the traditional markets, and of all the storage things in the traditional markets, the only thing that is growing is like backup and recovery software. So that's a good thing. It's like 40% year over year, which is also another sign that this is a good idea in general. But on the insurance side, you look at Rubrik, they provide like up to $1.5 million. But part of that's like more of a marketing gimmick. Like the insurers are going to insure the large businesses at the end of the day, but working with them, I think, is a really good idea. I've been reaching out to them, and they've sent me like all of their like questionnaire before they bring people on. The other thing about cyber insurance, as well, is like a lot of people aren't getting paid out because there's like the goalposts move so frequently, and it's very, very hard to maintain like all of those different things in the checklist to even qualify for the payment in general. And I've even seen like people not offering it as a service offering anymore from the insurance level as well. It's how do you underwrite something with like that many variables that can change on a dime? It's pretty hard stuff. But I think that at least if you have like a verified way and a guaranteed way that you can recover, I think that it would hopefully lower.
Yeah, almost like obviously when you guys are almost like it's an umbrella policy in a way of what's that?
Kind of. Yeah, you can think about it that way. It's like we're just selling insurance, I guess.
About the back stuff. How many people pay attention to? I mean, I'm just curious too, as we're talking about this. I mean, from your market strategy perspective, who are you targeting right now? Like smart business? Yeah.
Right now? Yeah, right now. So this is an integration game. So like we're not even. So we've been building Respawn for the last 3 to 4 months. So like we built the protocol. Now we're focusing in that direction. We should be hopefully, fingers crossed, ready to go by the end of this month, but it's an integration game, right? So like every organization like use a different tech stack. That's awesome, but it's also like very, very hard from our perspective. So we have to kind of power rank based on the people that are coming in, also just based on numbers. Like everyone uses MS365 or everyone uses G Suite and Slack and all these things. So the integration game is a pain. So what we're focusing on right now specifically, we've been talking with chemical companies. We've been talking with guys that are home builders. We've been talking with guys that are managed service providers that like just serve 50, 100 small businesses. So the MSPs is really good for distribution because like you can kind of just like roll up a bunch of small businesses into the platform. That's really great. And also kind of like the one-offs, like where we're talking with these guys that are building this manufacturing plant that we're talking with this week, where essentially their issue is that like they have a lot of bespoke software, and they have like these things that connect all of their like operation, like all their OT systems. So like there's a lot of this middleware that is actually the important thing, but like they're already like they're backing up like all the email and they're backing up like the OT systems. But like the bespoke in-house stuff, like that is like the actual like there's that meme where like all the blocks are stacked on top of each other, and there's like this one little piece that is just like some like thing that was hacked together by an intern at the plant like 30 years ago. Like that's actually the thing that's important. So bespoke integrations like that, it's a pain in the ass, but like at the end of the day, like they need that thing to be protected. So like the integration game is kind of what we're going to be focused on going forward with guys like that.
I guess what are some of the misconceptions when you're having these conversations with firms or people about, recovery planning or cyber, planning?
Oh, there's so many. The one thing that's very, very frustrating is that we have backups. It's like, okay, so let's talk about this. Where are the backups? It's like, oh, it's in our AWS instance, like right beside their active stuff. So like in the event that you're going to get hit with ransomware, it's going to hit the active stuff and it's going to encrypt the backups as well. So like that is like a very big thing where everyone has backups often for their own compliance. But the thing is that like they're in the same thing, right? So
I think that's a big point to hit on. So when somebody hacks you, they're getting into your AWS, right? Like they have everything.
Yeah, it's often, or like they like, oh, like my backups are in AWS, but we also have them in Microsoft, for example. It's like, okay, but the same person is it's like the same device that is actually doing that, and like they have all the passwords saved and blah blah blah. Like, so the thing is that can you eliminate single points of failure? And that's something that you can't really do with like the traditional technology. Or there's other, even people are buying very expensive disaster recovery software, but they don't actually provide storage at all, where they say bring your own storage. So you're using the expensive disaster recovery software, but then you're bringing your own storage to the table where the software just like integrates with all the stuff like what we're doing. And then the storage you bring yourself. But the thing is that like if the storage you bring yourself is managed by you, and you're the person with the passwords to that thing and they get into your computers, then it doesn't really matter whether like you have the expensive software or not. So I think there's a ton of misconceptions in general in that space. I think the biggest one is I'd have to pull up a stat, but it's extremely high amount of ransomware attacks. Like the backups are the things that they hit first. Like, because there's no incentive to pay the ransom if the backups are there.
That's a great hitting those first,
right?
People don't really think.
So often the ransomware or the malware or whatever it might be, it will sit on the network for a while until they can blow through the backups. If they can blow through the backups, then they'll do the ransomware, because now if you can't recover, the downtime is the pain point. Or sometimes for legal, sometimes it's not the downtime. It's more like all the solicitor client privilege stuff we're just going to release. So it kind of depends on who the target is. Manufacturing, builders, all those guys, like it's the downtime that's actually the issue. So if you don't have the leverage of the downtime, you're not going to pay the ransom.
Yeah.
And the ransom is usually a lot less than what you're costing.
Yeah, to your point, with the downtime, I mean, from a planning apps perspective, there's a lot of SLAs out there that if you breach those downtimes, then you're in trouble, right? From a client perspective.
Yeah. There's a lot of things, right? It's just at the end of the day, from first principles, we want the data to come back, right? If we can make the data come back, then we solve a lot of problems in this space. And I think that's like how you take the biggest chunk out of like this massive, massive problem. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think using blockchains as the backbone and the verification engine and the security guarantees from that chain for something that is as mission critical as this, that is like the real intersection of cybersecurity and blockchain technology. There's other stuff with like you can do identity stuff, and there's some other things as well that I think are really underexplored. But we think that this is like an awesome, just using the benefits and not the downsides of the technology on one side, and rather than just trying to like jam like a square peg into a round hole, which we've seen a lot of for years.
Yeah. How this kind of coming from left field, but like, do you have any insights on like how somebody can know if they've been hacked? And I bring this up, since it's a topic we're talking about, but also I had a friend recently. He ended up like clicking some Zoom link like 3 or 4 months ago. Kept getting all these calls, and it was actually somebody from the FBI trying to tell him you've been hacked. That was how he knew he got hacked. But like, somebody like me, I could be just sitting here. I don't know if my computer's like compromised. Any thoughts around that kind of?
Yeah, I don't know. Like if you go to, have you ever been to like Black Hat? It's like a conference
That's
in
an interesting
Vegas.
one.
You should go.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. No.
You should go if you've never been. The takeaway from Black Hat every single year, or DEF CON or whatever it might be, is that like you're gonna get hacked. Like there's too many variables, and the technology changes too fast just to not get hacked. You can do things that there's like cyber hygiene things that can just like make yourself just not a low hanging fruit, if that makes sense. So like if you're not a low hanging fruit, then you're not going to get hacked because there's so many other things to hack. Does that make sense? Where like
Right, they'll focus on somebody else.
yeah, like if you get the credit monitoring and you have like malware bites and you run your scans and you don't click things and you have email forwarding and you have just firewalls or VPNs. There's even an argument to be made that VPNs don't really do anything. But anyways, you can do things that like make yourself not a low hanging fruit and an easy target, and then they just move on because there's so much that they can hack. And this is something that we've seen when we're recommending stuff back when we were doing digital forensics, and like we would be the fire department that would come after the ransomware incident or something.
What's a couple like, somebody listening, like what's some really easy steps that somebody could take to kind of, see if they've maybe been compromised, or to, also to kind of stay on top of it?
Yeah, there's a party trick where I can like just tell anyone their passwords. That's like something that we've been doing, because like I think like just to make it kind of like really feel, this is something that we've kind of pulled out for where we've sent people reports of their own company's exposure. So when a hack happens, right? Let's say that what was a big one that happened, the LinkedIn hack. I don't know if passwords were in that one, but anyways, LinkedIn got hacked, everyone's emails and everyone's passwords and everyone's phone numbers, bang, in the open internet. For a while, it was just getting sold back and forth on like dark web marketplaces or gray net marketplaces. And then once it becomes in the public domain, that is like legally obtainable open source information, right? So if you take your oldest email, like I have an MSN that's just like absolutely ran through. So like you take the MSN, like Patrick Dunlop at msn.com, you jam it into something that indexes like this library of people's passwords and phone numbers and addresses and emails and names and kids' names and whatever. You take the email, you put it in there. There's one called dehash, for example, dehash.com or .org. You'll see it if you Google it. You pay for it, just like $15-20 a month. And it will just tell you all the places that that email has been leaked. And it'll give you your phone numbers, passwords, everything that's associated with that email, if that makes sense. So that's like a good way to just like kind of like understand like how bad it is. That's why things like password managers, having different password for every single thing is important. Email forwarding, where you have like a shitty throwaway email that you put in shit and then actually forwards to your real email. A bunch of stuff like that. Depending on how extreme you want to get, there's like books like Mike Bizel's Extreme Privacy. Or you can kind of take the other side of it, is like the open source intelligence stuff. But that is like the kind of way that I would like try to make it sink in a little bit. It's probably a good one. There's a free one like haveyoubeenpwned.com. That's another one. You can put your email in and it'll just like tell you the binary yes, no. So that's cool. But and then on the flip side, Hygiene, password managers, just simple stuff. Don't click stuff. Like I like Malwarebytes. There's some good open source virus stuff as well. It just kind of really depends, but get credit monitoring. That's another one where I think is very important because you're not going to know you got, like, for the average person. So like for, let's say for you, right? Like they're not really interested in like making you have ransomware downtime. like you're gonna be like,
Yeah.
oh, like I have to buy a new computer now. Lame. Like that would suck, but it's like not the end of the world, and you're probably not going to pay like $150,000 to $500,000 for a new, like, the laptop's cheaper, right? So for you, what they're actually going to do is, like, let's say you were in a recent hack, they bought your credentials off the dark web, they go and they pay some kid at a strip mall a junior chicken to like SIM swap you. Now they have access backdoored into your stuff. They're going to hit the banks. They're going to issue a new credit card. They're going to change your address. Now going to just be spending. And then you're going to claim it, and Visa's going to pay for it, or Amex is going to pay for it. It's not the end of the world. But you have to worry about your credit score. So like things like loans I've seen them take out like massive loans. I've seen situations where they use your identity to open new bank accounts. Stuff like that. I think credit monitoring is just generally a good thing to have. But like stopping people from hacking you, like it's not going to happen because it's not even your fault, right? Like your passwords are out there because there's a big collections database that like is just like a conglomerate of like all kinds of hacks that got just bundled together and released. Your stuff is in there, like, right? And it's nothing that you did wrong, other than like having the same password everywhere, or giving them like your actual phone number or stuff like that.
I do worry about the phone thing. To your point, this
good stuff.
I actually got SIM swapped this year.
Really?
Even me, like I can't even do anything about it, right? Because like I was at a conference, I had to run to the mall to go into the booth to try to get them to kick them off of a SIM card when they actually got into the Jackal Twitter account. Yeah, so that was us by using 2FA through phone. We didn't think that, like, we didn't even register that our community is actually something that someone would use to, like, it's crazy. They tried.
What were your big takeaways from that? The SIM swap, kind of what'd you do to protect yourself afterwards?
Yeah, make sure that the marketing team's using like authenticators or
2FA.
YubiKeys.
Yeah,
That's a big one. Like, it's pretty low hanging fruit. The other thing is make sure that if you're someone that is in control of something with like 20,000 followers, make sure that the actual phone company knows. That like people are going to try to SIM swap me. So like, we're going to do like some code, or we're going to do something along those lines, or I want you to reach out to like a third party or myself in the event that if anytime someone tries to do that, because it's just, they're going to send you an email that goes to your junk mail. It's not great.
Right.
Like the only way I knew was I was sitting at the conference and my phone went into SOS mode, and I get I thought they were going for like crypto, but they actually didn't even do that. They just wanted the socials, which I would have never thought that they actually cared about the socials more than the actual bank accounts or the exchange accounts or anything like that. Which is like, it's so creative. Like they're just way more creative than us. To be honest.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah,
this is cool. We've covered a lot here, Patrick. Any topics that we haven't touched on yet that, I guess maybe like what's your guys' roadmap? Kind of talk to us about, how you see this evolving over the coming years.
Yeah, we kind of have like two parallel roadmaps, right? So it's like, what are we doing on the application layer, which we think we can make the biggest impact for the protocol? And what is the protocol's roadmap in general? Because it kind of has to be split, because one sells to developers and then one sells to businesses. And we're actually the developers that are paying our own protocol. It's crazy how that works. But essentially, so that's kind of where our head's at right now. So for the protocol level, we want any developer on any blockchain be able to access storage with a simple smart contract call. We think that's super important. You can only build so big of a thing on blockchain rails before like you need heavy storage. And if you need heavy storage, you probably want it to actually work seamlessly with your smart contracts, not just like be API spaghetti and trying to like a workaround way to try to get it to work. So we think that's important for people to build web scale applications on blockchain rails. So that's we're on Base, we're on Archway, we're deploying Outposts on all kinds of chains. For us on the Respawn side of things, it's get it live, get our beta teams going right now. Like we have a bunch of organizations, and if you or anyone you know might be an organization that would want to beta test this, let us know through our email or through jackallabs.io, where we're just kind of getting those early adopters, and it's just like friends and other companies and all that kind of stuff that's just interested in the technology. And then after that, it's balls to the wall, just integrations, as many unique integrations as we can get, and as many unique clients that we can get for that product. That is essentially it. Obviously, like just boring upgrades to the protocol, upgrades to the storage providers, changing just the proof system, making it more scalable, stuff like that. But that's just kind of an infinite game.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like something that takes a lot of time. What have been some of your biggest challenges that you've overcome?
No documentation. Like when you're building blockchains, there's not really good docs. So it's just it's just chewing glass and staring into the abyss is probably the best way to put it for building blockchains themselves. That's a big one. Just access to talent's very hard. It's just like how many developers out there know the Cosmos SDK and know like Go and Rust and Solidity. Not very high unique amount of people.
Right.
So that's hard. Talent, just fighting with big tech and quant funds for like the same guys. We need like some math whizzes. Sometimes we need like to like work on compression algorithms for proofs. Like how can we increase the unique amount of files that can go through a single block? Stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just the actual tech stacks under us moving all the time. Where like, for example, like the Cosmos SDK is now moving into EVM. So like that's annoying because we have to now rebuild the chain again for like the fourth time. So like you have to understand that like the industry is a startup on chains that are startups on the industry that's a startup. And then there's chains or like applications that are startups on chains that are startups on an industry that's like, it's just same thing with AI guys right now. It's just like you could have poured everything into retrieval augmented generation just to get slapped with the fact that the context windows are getting bigger. Things happen, right? Like the goalpost move, all the tech moves at breakneck speeds, and it's just making sure that you can stay relevant and make sure that you just don't build yourself into a corner is the most important thing.
Cool. Patrick, I think this is a good spot to wrap up, man. This has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate you joining us, sharing your insights. A lot of good takeaways, even just from basic cybersecurity perspective. I got a couple good takeaways there.
Fun times.
Yeah. So where can people go to connect with you and learn more about Jackal?
Yeah, if you want to nerd out, the best way to reach out to us is you can go through Jackal Protocol's Twitter, so Jackal_protocol on Twitter, jackalprotocol.com for the protocol itself, jackallabs.io if you just want to talk to us directly, and then respawnit.com is going to be Respawn's. Right now it's just a waitlist and a landing page, but we have a new site that's coming up pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, like I said, like Mike said, this has been a great conversation, Patrick. We'll make sure to include all your contact info in the show notes as well. This has been fun.